Hi there and welcome to a tutorial on spoken language study, which is a controlled assessment for those of you taking English language and literature GCSE. Now this unit is Unit 3C, and one of the key things about this unit is that you need to collect your own examples of online communication. We call this your data, and it's a really important part of the assessment. You need to have a blank copy of your data when you're in your controlled assessment, and it's also a really good idea to have a second copy that you can make notes on and annotate. The exam board are really clear that this is a really crucial part of your controlled assessment, so you do need to include it. Now the title there on the screen is going to be your controlled assessment, and you basically, the gist of this is how is the way we speak to people face to face and the way we communicate with people online, how are those types of communications similar and different? That's what you're going to analyse. Now the way that this is assessed is for your, as you see, assessment objective 2, and it's evaluating the impact of spoken language choice and also looking at the context in which language is used. Quick glance here at your mark scheme. You're all looking obviously for band 5, and as with much of the higher level English, you're looking at analysis and evaluation. It's about being able to weigh things up, make judgments, interpret things, and that's your point of view and others. So obviously with online communication, you've got a number of different situations in which you might use that. So when you're collecting your data, it's really crucial that you try and get a bit of a range. So for example, Facebook chat, Facebook wall posts, if you've got a Twitter account. But again, if you're struggling with data, one thing you can do is just go to Google Images, type in Facebook chat, and just print off some of the images. So it's better if you've got your own because it's personal and you understand the context of it. But if you're struggling, that is something that you can use. Right, so what are some of the things we need to consider? Well, one of the things we need to consider is that obviously when we're talking to people face to face, accent and dialect is something that's relevant. Now your accent is the way you pronounce things, so if you listen to me you can tell I'm a Yorkshire born and bred. There's no baths and grass, it's bath and grass. That's the way I pronounce things, that's my accent. Now dialect refers to words that are unique to a particular area. So for example, if you decide to skive my lesson, I know that you're truanting. In another region in the country, you might decide to go twagging. It means the same thing, but it's a term that's used sort of uniquely in a particular area. So think about how accent and dialect can affect face-to-face and web-based conversations. Now two other terms that might be important to you are sociolect, which is a kind of group identity. So you and your friends might have particular words and phrases you use often. It's part of your kind of social grouping. This can also bring in family and local community as well. Your idiolect, however, is your own personal way of talking, and that's influenced by a number of things: family, beliefs, level of education. Linked to this is register. Now this is the type of English that you might use in a particular situation. So if I'm going for a job interview, I'm not going to swear, I'm going to be polite, I'm going to use standard English. Think about different situations you could be in and how you adapt and adopt your English for those particular situations. One of the other key things to consider in this unit is what are ultimately the differences between spoken language and written language. Here on the screen you'll see there's a number of different features, things that make that form of communication unique. And there's some obvious ones there. When we speak to people we can use eye contact, gestures. Also, it's spontaneous and it's in real time, so it requires us to be immediate, think on our feet, and that's why we'll have fillers, Listen out as I'm talking to you and you'll hear a number of fillers and mistakes and me self-correcting, which wouldn't happen if I was writing to you because it's permanent and I can redraft, so there's fewer mistakes. Now, along that speech writing continuum, we've got at one end things that are very formal and written down, going to really informal and spoken communication. Now, with this particular unit, why that's important is that you've got to view online communication and web-based communication as somewhere in the middle of this. So it's not an Oxford English Dictionary, highly formal piece of writing, neither is it a spontaneous piece of talk with your friends. It has elements of both. And when you're thinking about the differences between web-based communication and face-to-face conversation, that's something that you need to think of. So as mentioned, in terms of preparing for your controlled assessment, really important to have a range of data. So I think that 5 pieces is probably a reasonable amount. And what you're needing to do is annotate that data for features of online communication. Also think about the context, the relationship between participants, and anything else you find particularly interesting. There are some key words for this unit. They're the ones that are in bold on the screen at the moment. I'll let you pause that as when you need to. But it's essential that, particularly those higher grades, that you can use this vocabulary, this terminology in the same way that you would do if you were talking about similes and metaphors whilst analysing poems. It's essential that you annotate and analyse your own data for some of these features. Okay, this screen at the moment, it's got some information about what are the conventions, what are the typical elements of online or web-based communication. And this is the way that really online communication straddles both speech and writing. Again, I'll let you pause that at your own leisure so you can annotate your own data using that. Ask yourself as you're looking at your data and as you're considering the way you interact with people on a face-to-face basis, how different is your web-based communication to your face-to-face conversations? You in your personal life, what do you do differently in those? And as part of that, consider the relationship between the people taking part. So the way that you communicate face-to-face with your mum and dad on tea on a night is going to be different than Facebook chat with friends, because your relationship between the speakers is different. So jobs you need to do: going through your data thoroughly, looking for examples of the terminology that was on the screen a couple of minutes ago. And really then, your jobs in advance of the controlled assessment: creating a detailed plan, reducing it to a bullet-pointed planning sheet, which your teacher will provide for you, and producing some example paragraphs to get yourself in the swing of it. We can't mark a draft, it's against the rules, but you can practice a couple of paragraphs. And remember that you're going to need a couple of examples of blank data with no annotations and your plan in advance of this assessment. So, just to recap, your title explores some of the similarities and differences between spoken conversation and web-based communication, such as messaging, Twitter and Facebook. Good luck!